Hey, welcome back to the Speak to Freedom podcast. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how to build a high fee framework. Now, you may not know what a high fee framework is. That's totally okay. But here's what I'm going to tell you. At the end of the day, if you're a speaker trying to go out into the world and share a message and really impact lives, there's going to be a certain amount of work you can do from a stage, an impact you can make from a stage. I mean, you can give a great message and you can really serve hearts. That's what I love to do. But you'll find that some people, like, that's not going to be enough for them to change their lives. Some will take that nugget. And I think it's probably between 1% and 3% will take that nugget and they will run with it. They'll apply this thing to a high level. They'll do some crazy cool, buildups with it. But you'll also find there's going to be a base of human beings that are in the room, hear the message. It stands out. They love this message. But what you notice is that they, in fact, they don't know how to take it and apply it. They don't run with it. And that's the human condition, right? To have what I call shelf esteem, have all this information and feel great. And it sits on a shelf of your house or the shelf of your mind, but it doesn't get put into life. And so you feel good about having it, but you actually don't have a change in your life. So you don't get the longevity benefit of it. So I've always looked at it as how can I serve more? How can I really change this person's, life in a way? And so what takes place is it's the work beyond the stage. It's the work when they go home. It's the work when you go home. It's the things that happen in a company. It's all these little, pieces that happen well beyond that time spent speaking. And then what you look at is, well, how do I turn this into something they can take home? I'm up here, I'm motivating. Well, it's because you give them a process, a framework. Now, the reason I call it a high fee framework is because of two things. One, when you go to get booked as a speaker, if you have a framework that the audience can grab and take, you can charge a higher fee because there's not just you telling a story, there's you giving them tactical mechanisms to go apply. Beyond this, it allows you to take this framework and then do coaching and do consulting. And now before we get into you going, I'm not a coach, I'm not a consultant, that's okay. You don't have to actually be a coach coaching people, but you can have a coaching program built off a process that's developed from your life, from your experiences, from what you've gone through. It's really all it is. Like, there's programs that I've built that I don't coach a soul. No part of me shows up in a coaching call. It's just me serving and teaching, but for them, it's a coaching program. And so the idea is, well, that's really where the change takes place. Having someone get this tool that they can apply over a long period of time, whether it be a week, 2 weeks, a year. And then in this, you see that they start to have transformations. Their marriage gets better, their health gets better, parenting's better, maybe they're more communicative, better at sales, they're better leaders, like whatever it might be. There's a better to them. And it didn't happen accidentally. It happened because they were faced with moments that were unexpected, that led them to this process that they could try uniquely a new thing. And in trying this unique new process, it gave them a different outcome. And over time, they became this different human that's accomplishing more, that's seeing more, doing more, getting elevated. They're getting more praise, right? And over time, it transforms who they are. It's a beautiful thing to watch people's lives change like that. But it doesn't always happen simply because you spoke for an hour or 20 minutes, whatever, on a stage. It's because you gave them something beyond the stage. So what is this something? It's a process. It's a framework. It's a step-by-step tool that someone can then apply to their lives to move forwards. Think of it kind of like school. School is a humongous framework, right? There's algebra 1, algebra 2, algebra 3. There's stages to it, right? Within algebra 1, there's certain things you have to master before going to algebra 2, and so on and so forth. Well, the same thing takes place, but it's more so the college of your life. So if you say, I want to teach you how to sell 1 million crocodiles in Florida, right? There's going to be a process to that. And there's going to be a stage by stage, kind of progression that allows someone to go through the different pieces to get them in a position to sell 1 million crocodiles. And it might mean, how do you catch them, humanely? How do you then, store them? How do you sell them? How do you deliver them? These little pieces to figure out how to do it. But there's step 1, step 2, step 3. Now, while that's a very kind of off the wall example, the idea is if you want to teach somebody how to fix their marriage, you want to teach somebody how to get in better shape, you want to teach somebody how to make the perfect hamburger, right? There's going to be these steps that people go through. And when you're talking from a stage about the thing that you want to do, you want to empower women, you want to impact lives, you want to develop special leadership skills, there's going to be a way somebody can do that. They can hear you talk about it and hear your story of it happening, but it doesn't equate to them knowing how to do it for themselves. And that's where the framework comes in. So how do you build a framework? We're going to give you really the overarching aspects. There's a lot more depth to how to build a framework that I'm about to share with you because it's just what we do in our coaching program, Speak to Freedom. But in that program, we go through all the little pieces to do it. But I'm going to give you the best overarching kind of progression or thoughts that I can give you now that'll really help you develop this and genuinely will help you do this in real time. But it's not going to be hand in hand with a coach like we typically do. Here's the first thing you have to think about this framework. You want to first start by doing this little thing of saying, well, what's this framework supposed to do? Right? That's the big piece. What will it do? What's the outcome when someone goes through it? And you need to know this too, because you need to know where you're taking somebody. Because if you don't know where you're taking somebody, where they're going to go, right, when this framework's done, what they're going to accomplish or now have in their life, well, then you won't know what to actually go for step 2, but you won't know what to promise anybody. So the first thing is, well, what is the promise of this framework? When you've accomplished it, when someone's gone through it, what's the promise, right? For us, is to develop a dominator's identity. I call it a dark work experience. It's our process. The outcome is a dominator's identity. We're not going deep into my work, but conceptually, there's an outcome somebody gets. They're going to operate in a stance or an internal daily operation of being a dominator. It's a certain emotional connection, habitual connection, the way they communicate, the way they show up. There's a lot that goes into the characteristics of what that is. But that's the outcome. So when you go to my process, we're guiding you towards that, right? So the first thing is, where is somebody going to be going with your framework? What are you having them be at an end destination, right? That's going to help you market it, help you develop it, help you promise to it. It's going to help you build every piece of it. Now we're going to say, okay, great. If someone's going to this place here, right? That's the promised outcome. Well, where are they currently at? Emotionally, maybe even physically, right? Where are they starting from? And you want to be able to frame this up because it's going to allow you to figure out where you're going to start your process steps and end your process steps. Now, when you think about the place you're promising, just keep in mind, it should be a place that you've arrived at. If you've never made $1 million, don't promise $1 million. If you've never, sold a company, don't teach them how to sell a company. Do something that you've done. Wherever you've crossed the finish line in your life, promise that, right? Then where are you starting? There's a great statement that says, you are best suited to serve someone who is where you once were, which means there's going to be a place that you have gotten out of, that somebody hasn't gotten out of, a place you've navigated that they've never navigated. There's an experience or a situation you've kind of traversed that they're still stuck in. So you want to think about that's the starting point. And the end point, we've already figured out. Now it takes us to the next piece. The next piece is very straightforward, but it's going to take some thinking through. And I want you to do it in this kind of manner here. One, I want you to look at your life and think of things from the place you started to where you're at now. What are things you had to stop doing or remove from your life? I'm dead serious. What are things that were part of your life, part of your habits, part of your everyday operation that you realized no longer fit and they were removed? Was it people? Was it habits? Was it places you went? Was it things you ate? Was it trips you took? Like, what are the things that were going on consistently that you were like, I got to stop doing this? And you looked at it and you did stop doing those things. The second part of this is, what did you start doing? Like, what did you pick up as habits, pick up as friends, as groups, as new operations, new thought structures, new ideas, new beliefs, new principles, new values? What did you pick up? Because a lot of us don't realize that along that journey, who you are now is based on what you picked up along the road. And I want you to painstakingly go through this. Sit down and make a paper. Just get a piece of paper, make a list. On the left side, put down. On the right side, place pick up. So put down, pick up. That's it. What did you put down, stop doing? What did you pick up and start doing? And this should be an expansive list, extensive as possible. You won't use all of it, but you want to be able to have it because you can use this for content later on. You can use it for podcasts, for curriculum. You can do so much with this because you're finally going to figure out how you became how you are. So now we have this idea that goes, great. Okay, I have a process that's kind of here. It's a little bit of steps I did and didn't do, right? Now I want to go through this little process. What is the order? If you were to recommend to somebody the most important things to do from where they are at, where you were, and where they want to go, what is the most important thing that you had to eventually just stop, put down? And it's tied to a moment of crystal clarity and awareness. There is a aha moment, an epiphany moment where all of a sudden you stopped and looked at your life and go, this isn't good enough, or I got to change something, or I can do more, right? There's got to be that moment in time where you had this enlightenment moment of awareness of like, shoot, there's so much more possible out there, right? And so what happens is most folks don't pay attention to this, but that's where you want to start because you were in that place that they are now. You had this initial thought. It's usually the first one you had that kickstarted everything. And you go, I got to stop this. It could have been the person that was an alcoholic and they're doing all these things. And all of a sudden they realize they read this article about someone that got in a car accident and they passed away and there was a drunk driver. And you go, man, I got to stop driving drunk. Making something up right now, obviously, but that could be the thing, right? That's the moment I woke up and go, I don't need to do this. And you have that moment of when you had awareness, right? The next is going to be, now that I've put this thing down, what's the next critical thing that I did to pick up a new habit, right? This could be that I joined a group, I met some people, I read a book. Like, what is the thing you did that put you in a position to go, I'm going to try something new, different than I've ever tried before. And it's usually in a position where you found massive discomfort. It didn't feel like you to do it. You felt completely out of your comfort zone and out of character, but in a good way. But you tried this thing. You went and did this new, unique thing that felt different, right? The third thing is where, after doing that, did you find yourself in a situation where you were challenged like you had been previously, but you acted differently, right? You've lived your life. You found this awareness that woke you up. Then all of a sudden, in a moment where like you started doing some things and it did over time get you outcomes and you achieved something. And then in the future, you were tested again in some manner that was similar to what you would have been tested like previously, but you responded differently. That's going to be your three main stages for your process, your high fee framework. Why? Well, because you're going to be able to tuck within that so many different stories. You know, the story of you being aware to something at that point of awareness, before you did anything, you had an awareness. You had to figure out what to do. You had to analyze yourself, pay attention to things, look what's around you and go, man, this is the problem. Something has to change. Great. Then when you had that awareness of something had to change, you changed something. Something new happened. You tried this new piece, right? And then this implementation of this new thing. There's a lot of stories you're going to have about, being in a position to try this thing and test this thing and see what's going on. And you did a bunch of unique new things, right? And that's a journey of difficulty of having to retrain people on who you are, have people make fun of you maybe, not feel confident at this new thing, but gain skill sets, gain confidence, get better and better. And all of a sudden over time, you're a different human doing different things, right? You're closer to where you are now. And then life gave you another kind of, situation that you faced and you got over it in a way you never would have before. And you realized, man, it's because I did this, this, and this. I stayed consistent. I pushed through. I leaned on my messaging. I leaned on, not my messaging, leaned on my people around me. I leaned on myself in a different way. And now I can say I'm in a great place and I feel confident teaching other people, right? This allows you to kind of parse out the segments of your life in a way that gives great value to people. It gives them value because they'll be able to hear your story, but get takeaways that allow them to get into motion with what you just talked about. Now, you can frame these steps in multiple ways. It can be structurally driven, like a Venn diagram, and also process driven in a Venn diagram kind of process. You could do it in a grid. You could do it in stage by stage and steps. There's so many ways to visually represent this process. But this process becomes what you will actually build your entire company around. Because when somebody goes, hey, I love what you just talked about, I want to do that for my life to have a similar transformation to you, as opposed to going, you got it, and letting them wander off into the world hoping to figure it out on their own. You can now go, great, I have this process I'd love to walk you through, or a process that you can go through. I've got the videos here you can just simply watch and go through. And you can train people. Now, there is depth to this. You do have to figure out what the individual pieces are, then make lessons around that, then take the lessons and make them actionable to where you can have somebody do work and pencil and paper and write and do things to get the outcome. Think school, right? Same concept as school. You learn through doing. Same thing for a company as a consultant, right? If you want to come in and work with a large company and all their people collectively, same kind of framework. The process, the foundation is a similar piece to it. This allows all of us to get into a position of being able to take our message and not just tell a story around it, but teach from it, transform from it, and actually have the ability to make high fees, but also high impact. Because the truth is, as a speaker, the beautiful thing is if you want to make great impact, it inherently comes with great income, right? The bigger rooms you get into, the bigger groups of people, maybe 10,000 plus humans, when you get to go into high level executive rooms, those individuals have higher budgets to pay great service speakers. And we'll call them SMEs, subject matter experts. They can pay them at a higher level because they realize that if you come in and have a really unique piece that serves them, they're going to do something great with that, whether it's going to be impactful or financial, but there's still value to it. So I have found as I have tried to climb my rates and climb my levels, that I'm doing it with the intention of serving the higher humans in these industries, because they get to do much more with it to make greater impact on the world. And there's also great value for me, so I can charge more and everybody's happy. But you can't do that if you have no process, if you have no high fee framework. So if you want to know how to do this, simply follow these steps I talked to you about. It's going to unpack it all for you. If you want me and my team to coach you through this, simply go to speaktofreedom.com. You'll find all the information you need about how to actually let us dive in and build the entire machine out. I just broke down one of 3 pieces of 9 major pieces in our entire process. But I'll tell you this is one that if you could just take it and simplistically build it, you'll get a great deal of value for yourself in learning how to get one step further down the pathway towards being a high-level speaker. So that's it. I thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you next episode. That's a wrap for today's episode of the Speak to Freedom podcast. I hope you found our discussion inspiring and informative. Now, if you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay updated on all our future releases, be sure to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for tuning in today. Until next time, remember to speak with confidence and clarity so you can one day soon speak to freedom. See you in the next episode.